So it's been a while since I have recorded anything photography related for my YouTube channel, so today I thought I would walk you through the process of making a photographic print of a recent typewriter project that I finished. Now the end result of this print is going to be published in an upcoming book on the Williams typewriter that I hope to have out in the early weeks of February. So here you can see I'm just getting started pouring my chemistry into the trays. First is the developer, the second tray is water, and this final tray that I'm pouring now is the fixer. Now this fixer I have is a little bit old, and what it does is it strips away the undeveloped silver from the paper. And if we look closely in the bottom of the tray here, we can actually see that some of the metallic silver has actually precipitated out of the solution. So I thought that was pretty cool. As far as making the actual prints go, the first step for me, of course, is to make a contact sheet of all of the negatives that I shot. Now these images and the resulting prints are going to be in black and white, and the first step is just to make sure that I can get the light shining down, covering the entire surface of the negative so they all print evenly on the contact sheet. Normally I end up weighing these down with a piece of glass, and this time I chose a little bit of a thinner piece of glass because it often gives me a sharper image. It distorts the light a little bit less. So with the red safe lights on, I can actually adjust all of my papers the way I want them and then start beginning the printing process. Now the first step of generating a print requires me to do a whole bunch of test strips. Now these test strips are basically small sheets of photographic paper that's going to be laid underneath the negatives, and I'm going to run a series of timed exposures. I usually do this in about 2-second increments. So I will expose that sheet of paper for about 2 seconds, turn off the light, move a mask over, expose it for another 2 seconds, and by the time I'm done, I should have a gradient that has 2 exposures of 2, 4, 6, and 8 seconds, sometimes even 10 seconds. And I can develop that and get an accurate idea of how long I need to expose my final prints for. So I've thrown my first test strip into the developer tray here, and we can see that we have a nice exposure. And once we get that through the water bath to stop the development process and into the fixer, we'll be able to turn on the lights and assess my exposure gradients. Generally, the second test strips, or consequential test strips, will help me fine-tune the exposure. All of these test strips and all of these subsequent test strips will be developed and assessed in the same way. There's a lot of variables at play here. Sometimes there could be additional light, especially coming off the camera, which can sometimes fog the paper. So we usually take several attempts just to make sure that I've gotten the exposure right and all of my settings dialed in the way I want it before going ahead and printing on an entire sheet of photo paper. And this test strip here looks really good, so I believe that's going to be my final exposure time. And you can see in the bottom of the tray there's all of the other scraps of test sheets that I tried out. What looks like I spoke too soon, I am developing another one. Yeah, I'm recording this voiceover quite a while after I actually ran these prints, so apologies for the incongruency. We have the light dialed in, and I'm going to remove the back paper, which is just a piece of white paper that helps me line everything up. And with a red safety filter over the enlarger light, I can put down a fresh sheet of unexposed photo paper and carefully align my negatives on top of that. The negatives then get flattened down with a piece of glass. We can turn off the light, turn on the timer, remove the safety filter, and then run the final exposure on the contact sheet. Now once the contact sheet is finished, I can get a good idea of the exposures and general sharpness of all of the images that I took. And from there I will choose which image that I want to print and fine-tune. In this case, it is the image that, from your perspective, is on the lower left of the contact sheet. So that negative then gets loaded into the negative carrier and then slotted into the enlarger to be ready to print. Once the negative is loaded, I will once again take a white piece of paper that's the same thickness as my photo paper and place it under the enlarger. This helps make sure that I can get an accurate focus on the image before I make the final print. Once everything's focused, I slide the safety filter back over and start printing another series of test strips. This particular gradient was a nice example and allows me to make a test sheet of an exposure time that I think is going to be right for the final print. In this case, I also used a number 3 Ilford contrast filter to help darken up the blacks and retain some of the highlights. I think the print came out very nice. There are a few things that I might do differently in subsequent rounds of printing, but each individual print and each time you change focus or contrast filters requires another round of test strips. It's a very time-consuming process that takes a lot of care, attentiveness, and patience. So I hope you enjoyed seeing the process of how I make some of these prints, and I do sell them from time to time, and this one in particular you should be able to find on my website soon. along with the release of the book that this image is featured in.